Hi, and welcome to the JAR Online. My name is Emily, and I'm so glad you joined us for this #Struggles series. In today's digital age, we love filters. We use filters for everything, to remove blemishes and try to make ourselves look better than we actually are. But the more filtered our lives become, the less authentic we are. Let's listen to Pastor Chris as he shares about how being authentic with other people can actually bring us more freedom.
The truth is that we live in a very filtered world. Every single picture we take, every selfie that we have, we are constantly doing something with it. If we're not happy with it, we take care of the blemish. We can actually change the color of our eyes. If you don't like your blue eyes, you can have brown eyes. If you don't like your brown eyes, you can have blue eyes. You can do anything you want to take care of that so that you have a perfect picture. I mean, you can filter your life and you can show the people who you think they want you to be. But there's no authenticity with that, there's no realness with that, and there's no transparency. It's just a filtered picture of yourself. And this kind of leads us to our big idea this morning. And if you would just kind of pull out on your phone, you can, the app. But this is your first fill-in, and it's this. The more filtered our lives become, the more difficult it is to be authentic. The more filtered our lives become, the more difficult it is to be authentic. Folks in our culture today, we are so trained to actually live a filtered life. We can make the picture better. We can make whatever it is around us better. And when we send it out to the rest of the world, the reason why we go through all of the trouble to make sure that it's filtered and it's perfect is because we want what? Likes. We all want likes. We all want some thumbs up. We want some affirmation, some approval that, wow, I look good, or what I just said sounds good. And pretty soon, the trouble is we live such a filtered life that who we were created to be is not necessarily who we project anymore. We're no longer who we are and who God created us to be. You know, maybe no item has been more controversial than this in our culture over the past year. Nobody likes these. No one wakes up in the morning and is like, woo, I hope I can wear my mask today. Like, everybody hates these things. I get it. But I was thinking about it over the past few months as I was preparing. You know, the real problem, folks, is not this. The real problem is that before COVID ever came, many of us were already wearing one of these. Many of us have been wearing a veil for a long time. For some of us, maybe months, maybe years, maybe for some of you, it's been decades that you've been filtering your life from other people, even from God. We all have some insecurities. We all have, the fact that there are areas of our lives that we don't feel good about ourselves. There are things that we do sometimes that we just are like, And when we sin, rather than immediately going to God and saying, God, I'm so sorry for this, we tend to put on a veil. We tend to put on a mask. We tend to filter ourselves to look different than we are. We're trying to put a veil over. We're trying to put a mask on. And honestly, the physical appearance, when we filter it, is the easiest of it all. But the question that I want to ask you this morning is this: what veil are you wearing? What veil in your life are you wearing? What are you trying to portray to the rest of the world that maybe isn't really you? For example, there's some ways that people do this. Some people will go and they'll be like, I'm spiritual guy, I'm spiritual girl. And you look at their Facebook page or their Instagram and they got their little coffee, they've got the Bible opened up, and they're like, look what I'm reading, and everything's going so great. But the truth is, folks, when you pull back the curtain, when you take the veil off, the reality is there's a secret sin in some of your lives that you've been hiding away for years and years and years, and it haunts you. But you've never confessed it to God. You've never confessed it to another single person that you trust. And so you just keep putting up that image. I'm spiritual guy. I'm spiritual girl. How about with it moms? Maybe you're a with it mom. A with it mom is they take a picture of them and their kids making cookies together, or with their kids at this sporting event or at this activity. And all of a sudden you send this picture out and you're like, hey, I'm with my kids and it's all going great and I'm with it, mom, and everything's good and it's wonderful, and yet you're overwhelmed, you're exhausted, and you feel like you have no friends and you don't have a life. And there's a piece of you that you know. There's this one area that if everybody knew, sometimes I yell at my kids, sometimes I go off on them, sometimes I wish they weren't around. You don't share it because you got to be with it, mom. I'm with it, mom. Now, this is what the bottom line is for this. Everything that we say or share must be true. But everything that is true does not have to be shared on social media. Let me say that again. Anything that you post or you share should be true, but everything that is true, folks, does not have to be posted out there. Folks, social media is not the place where you always have to reveal everything. It's not where you have to remove your veil because you need some likes. You need some affirmation. You need some attention. But if you don't remove the veil face to face with people periodically, you will never become who God has created you to be. Because for us to truly be authentic, we have to be vulnerable at times with God and just one other trusted person. You don't have to do it with tens of thousands of people on social media or 10 people in your little group, just one person. Now, don't miss this. A veil that first covers your face eventually will cover your heart. A veil that first covers your face will eventually cover your heart. You see, what starts out as like a superficial kind of covering often becomes a spiritual condition where we start hiding everything. We hide small things first, but then they get really big. And we start with the face, but eventually we start filtering our heart. Instead of sharing exactly what's going on and who we are and what we've done and what's happened, we just filter our heart. Because we're afraid. This is the biggest fear that we have. If people really knew, if God really knew, He already does, by the way. But if God really knew what I did, what I said, what it was, that people just would not like me. We've gotten so good at filtering everything else, kind of like the top 10 list of our life, that we think we're living that, but the normal is not that. And suddenly we're all living for the likes. Do you like my hairstyle? Do you like the shirt that I'm wearing? Do you like my new dog? Do you like my new car? Do you like my house? Do you like me? Please tell me, do you like, oh. But there's no one there, and we go off to bed, and it doesn't matter how many likes you have at the end of the day. Sometimes you just feel alone. And all the time, we're living for likes, but we're longing for love. Let me say that again. We're going through life, we're living for those likes, but what we're really longing for is love. You see, the problem is when we start filtering our lives, when we show ourselves better than what we actually are because we're trying to impress other people, you might impress some people, but you never connect. You never connect at a deep level. We may impress people with our strengths, but we connect through our weaknesses. Folks, so often we try to impress the world with, here's the me I want you to see. And there's something deeper in each of us that we are longing for. You see, when it hit me in my life at a point where I was struggling the most, at the age of 26, and I realized I was at a point where God was all that I had, I finally realized that God was all that I needed. It wasn't until I realized that God was all that I had that I finally realized God was all I needed. And I didn't have to seek the approval of every other person. I just needed to seek the approval of an audience of one. And then all of a sudden, my identity, when you do this, is not based upon how many followers you have, but it's based on the one that you're following. And I'm following Jesus Christ, and because I am, He removes the veil from my face, and He allows me to live the authentic life that He's called me to live.
It's so good to know that our identities don't have to be based on the amount of followers we have or the number of likes we get. But we can base our true identities on Jesus, the one who knows us best and loves us most. And it's through my identity in Him that I can live a truly authentic life. If you want to know more about living an authentic life with Jesus, or maybe you want prayer to help you live a more authentic life with the people around you, find the prayer link at the bottom of this page, submit your prayer request, and a staff member from the JAR would love to reach out and pray with you. If you want to hear a powerful story of authenticity and how being more authentic brings about some big life changes, check out Jeremiah's story next to this video.